y'all, happy Blockheads Wednesday. This week is block 27 of Blockheads 5 Group 2, and our guest designer this week is Brenda Riddle, and her block design is called Twinkle. It's a super fun, super cute, very traditional pieced block. This is my Twinkle block and I just love it. It was so much fun to make. So much fun that I made too. So I've got my Americana block too. In this week's video, I'm going to walk you through 2 different ways to make half square triangles, and we'll talk a little bit about choosing colors for the background and side center star of your block. So grab your pattern and let's get going. For Blockheads this week, we're making lots of half square triangles, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to make those half square triangles. So the first way is going to be the traditional way. It's the way that I have described in the pattern for you. So if you like just doing traditional half square triangles, just follow the pattern. But then I'm also going to show you guys how to use the star singles, which are triangle papers. And these are really handy for making several half square triangles at once. If you haven't already, go ahead and grab the PDF from the link in the video description and print out your pattern. This is what we'll be using to make our block today. I give you the 2 at a time method for making your half square triangles in the pattern, but I do mine a little bit differently. I go ahead and cut my squares in half because I like having that straight edge to sew along. It makes it go a lot faster for me. I'm a chain piecer and I can just feed these paired up triangles together right through my machine, and it goes so fast. Now, some people aren't crazy about using this method because you are sewing along the bias, but here's why it's okay to do it. I use a lot of starch. So I starch my fabrics very heavily before I cut them. That helps me avoid stretching when I'm sewing on the bias like this. The other thing is that I give you cutting instructions that give you slightly oversized units when you're done. So you're going to trim them down. So even if you don't starch your fabrics, you're still going to end up with slightly oversized half square triangles that you can trim away any wonkiness. So if you haven't tried this method, if you are looking for an efficient way to chain piece these half square triangles, why don't you just give it a try? Cut those squares apart right there on the diagonal before you start sewing them, and see if that helps you make your half square triangles a little bit faster. Okay, I've got all of my triangles paired up and I'm ready to sew together my half square triangles. So I'll go do that and then let's come back and take a look at trimming. Okay, I've got all my little half square triangles here and they're ready to trim up. So let's take a look at how you're going to trim these down. So you can see they finish just right after sewing and pressing open. They're just a little bit more than 1.5 inches. So I'm making the 6-inch block, so I'm going to trim my half square triangles to 1.5 inches. And so this shows you how much you have to trim away after you've pressed them out. So I wanted you to be able to see what I meant when I say you'll have a little bit oversized half square triangles. I just get my 45-degree angle of my ruler and line it up right along the edge of my seam here, and that shows me how much I have to trim away. There's my 1.5-inch line. A must-have for trimming lots of units is a little rotating cutting block. I love these things. It makes it so much faster to trim with a rotating cutting block. So if you don't have one, definitely add that to your wish list. There we go. Now I have a perfect little 1.5-inch half square triangle. So I'm going to trim the rest of these now and then we'll come back and look at the layout. I just finished trimming all of my half square triangles and I went ahead and laid out my full block, and I want to show you guys why I like to assemble this block in quadrants as opposed to rows. It's a lot of little pieces in this block and we give you a pattern, to follow to help you line it all up, but it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm not crazy about sewing long rows together. I like to sew things in a quadrant, and so if you make 4 of the same quadrant, and all you have to do is then rotate them. So I would sew this little quadrant together, do that 3 more times, and then it's going to make it really easy to assemble my full block without a lot of mistakes. But if you want to have that center square be one solid piece as opposed to having the 4 smaller squares here, then you would want to assemble in rows. And so you could lay out your full block and then just go in rows and you could have that center block be solid. This is one layout. In my traditional version here, I'm using two different fabrics for what would be A and D in the pattern. And I have another block, my Americana block. I'm going to use the same fabric for both of those. And I want to show you guys how I use these triangle papers to put it together. It's a little bit of a different look to have that same fabric in the center of your star as well as the outside. I like to use these triangle papers. These are star singles. And they make it really easy to make a bunch of half square triangles all at once. So you just stack your squares together, right sides together, and then sew on the dotted lines and then trim them on the solid lines, and you're done. Your half square triangles are done. It's so fast. I've already sewn several of these together. I'm going to show you guys how it looks when you are stitching these, how you follow the line, and then let's talk about how we trim these. Okay, so I've sewn this one together. I can take my pen out now and let's cut on the solid lines. I'll start with the outside edges and just trim away right on those solid lines. So 4 all the way around the outside of the square. I love that I have a line to follow. I don't have to look on my ruler for anything. I can just use that line and quickly trim everything away. So now I'll cut in half. And these also come in a variety of sizes. So I'm using papers for my 1-inch finished, but they have 2-inch finished and lots more sizes as well. All right, now I can cut on the diagonal line. And I'm going to just tear this paper away, just like that. I've used a short stitch length, just like when you're foundation paper piecing, and that's going to make tearing the paper away very easy. And look at that. It's a perfect 1.5-inch half square triangle. So I'm going to finish trimming the rest of these, and then we'll come back and we'll compare the two different layouts for my blocks. Okay, I'm back. I've sewed together all my half square triangles into the quadrants, and you can see this is why I like to do these blocks in quadrants as opposed to rows. It just is going to make it really easy to do this final seam for these. So you can see the difference in the layout. So my Americana block, I have used the kind of the color placement that we have given you in the pattern. So with the same fabric for the center star and the background around the outside. It's just a nice, sweet look. And then here for my traditional block, I have used a different fabric in the center star. I've got a woven in there, and I really like how it pops. So that's just a good way to play around with fabric placement, with color, and to just get a different look for your block. I used the pattern instruction method to make my traditional half square triangles, and I used those star singles half square triangle papers to make the Americana block, and both are great, just depends on your skill level and your preference. So now I'm ready to sew together my final block and put these on the board with my other ones and start deciding on how I'm going to finish out my Blockheads project. Thank you so much for watching today's video. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Brenda Riddle, for this beautiful Twinkle block. What a fun design. I can't wait to see everyone's blocks in our Facebook group and on Instagram. So don't forget to join us on Facebook in our official Blockheads Facebook group. We'd love to see you there. We've got almost 74,000 members, and it's a great community. And then if you are posting your blocks on Instagram, use the hashtag MotoBlockheads5. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.